Welcome back to Eat Sleep Boxing Repeats YouTube channel. Delighted to be joined by Lukey Boxing, Luke Cattell, however you guys want to call him, for another ESBR roundtable. Here just to discuss a couple of issues and topics in the world of boxing. Luke, thank you for your time. It's great to have you on. How are you?
You're such a professional. I utterly begged you for 2 weeks to be on, and you made it seem like you're such a good guy. I'm honored and flattered to be on, and I just appreciate being able to talk with you over the years.
Yeah, all good, all good. Before we get things started, I've seen you promote your book on social media, but I want to hear more about it. Can you what is it? Can you tell us more about it? Why you chose to write this book and what it's about?
Pardon my big baller ring. This is the book right here. There's my ring. That's the book. Um, it's a guidebook for any young fighter or any person that's coming into the sport of boxing, because as you know, boxing is the sport of over promise, under deliver. And these are kind of one of my favorite. I'm saying a lot, which is terrible, but Machiavelli's The Prince is one of my favorite books. So this is very much a tactical guide to power in the sport of boxing through my perception is real. So I'd like to believe it's a guidebook like The Prince, or maybe Caro's The Master of the Senate on Lyndon B. Johnson. This is a tool for young fighters to look at and understand what you're getting into.
Fantastic. And why have you written it? Was that did you hear about experiences that fighters have had that made you want to write it? What was the reason why you've kind of made the effort to go and write this book?
Twofold. My friend Frank Staya just told me I need to write 2 books, and he's a close friend. It's like not unlike you. You're a friend. If you told me I have to do something, I got to get it out of the way quicker than later, So I got to knock it out so I can accomplish. I'm about legacy, right? So I want to accomplish as much legacy in my lifetime. So when I leave my footprint on life or the world, I want people to think, hey, man, he made an impression in the positive. A lot of people make an impression, it's in a negative. I want to leave my footprint as a positive. So when Frank told me that, I sat down and wrote 70 pages in probably about 4 hours. And I said, man, I got a lot to write about.
Yeah.
Wrote 200 pages in 5 days. And then my editor turned it into 117 pages. They said over half of the stuff you wrote is utter garbage. And then that was very humbling. But the reason is a lot of amateur boxing coaches or a lot of young people in boxing would call my phone and have conversations about just what should I do in boxing? What are things, because I've been in boxing about 12 years, and I've been around a lot of local fighters and seen habits form. So I just kind of talk and tell stories. The concept of this book is maybe I don't have to take as many of those phone calls. Maybe I can refer someone to a book. And then if you still want to talk with me, now we can talk with an entry point and you can be more specific and it takes less time. So that's kind of the concept behind it, is also selfishly to not have to allocate so much time to other things, though I love people in general.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Well, please do send me a link to somewhere where people can buy this book. We will put this link in the description of this video, and hopefully we'll get some people purchasing it. But you're really I'm glad to hear more about it. To be honest, I didn't know too much, but it's really good to hear more about it. Yeah, so there will be a link in the description of this video. So thank you for sharing.
I think I can gift you the book on Kindle, right? Can I buy a Kindle book and send it to your email?
I would imagine so. I would really, yeah.
I got you, Elliot. I'm gonna send it to you. Send me your
that.
email, and you got the book coming.
100%. Thank you, Luke. Moving on, got a couple of important things to discuss. I always enjoy speaking to you because I find you very honest, a little bit blunt, and that's kind of how I like my people. So I think that's why we kind of get on fairly well. Joyce stopped Joseph Parker in the 11th round last night. Some people have differing opinions on Joyce in terms of, because he's maybe a bit slow. Some people find him hard to watch. There are some people out there who think he could beat Usyk, he could beat Joshua. What was your opinion on last night, and what are your general thoughts on Joyce as a fighter?
I'm intrigued. I'm really all in on Joe because look, he's a 37-year-old fringe prospect. He just became a contender at 37. This is a historic thing that we're seeing. How many guys who in most people's life they'd be considering at the end of their athletic achievement is called at the start, or we're wondering what he's going to be at 37 years old. That alone is interesting. I saw a lot of comparisons to George Foreman. I don't know enough about George Foreman to know if this is true or not. I just think of George Foreman as he hit really hard. I think that as boxing fans, we're a little snobby. Like we want to see something that maybe looks pretty
Mm.
or beautiful or captivates us. Last night I was watching Corrales Castillo. I was watching Trinidad Vargas because I get bored on a lot of these modern fights. I want to go back to what made me love the sport. And I know there's a point going back to Joe Joyce. What my point is, sometimes we get infatuated with beauty over effective. What Joe Joyce does is highly effective. It's straight punches. It's tough. He wears you out. I'm utterly enthusiastic to see how far he can take it. I love seeing him. I don't know how you feel about him, but I think that it's kind of snobby when people go, "Oh, this isn't going to work on." We don't know. Give him the fights and let's see.
I think that Joe Joyce is who he is, and he can't help that. You can't kind of help who you are. He's not going to turn into this, I don't know, hugely technical boxer with lightning hand speed. That's just not him. He's a massive heavyweight. But look, I think you mentioned the word effectiveness there, and that's what he is. I think one of the things that's freakish about him and unique about him is that he can just Joseph Parker would hit him with his uppercuts, and then he just wouldn't move. And at the end of 11 rounds, Joe Joyce looked like he'd been for a run, to be honest. Whereas Joseph Parker looked really beat up. And I think it's exciting to me because it's something different, and I want to see how far he can go. Can he beat one of these top 5 heavyweights?
Isn't it kind of exciting when there's a guy like a Joe Joyce, like where you're one, it's like Boots Ennis, even though they're different, you want to see where the ceiling is for this. Like part of the joy of Joe Joyce from our standpoint, a media lens, is when does this not work? When does he meet the guy that doesn't let him do it? Or is this just a one of one, a guy that is really a juggernaut who can take Wilder's punch, he can take Fury's punch. He was meant to do this, and everything we knew to be true does not matter because this guy's just I think this is what the sport of boxing to me gets me excited, is understanding a unique talent and anticipating how far they can take that unique talent.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll round this part of the conversation off by saying big fights are in the future for Joe Joyce. What is the one fight for you that you would really want to see above everything else? As mentioned, there's many things could happen here. Like, could he fight Joshua or Fury next year? Wilder, Usyk, Dillian White, loads of fights. What is the one fight for you that you want to see Joe Joyce in next year?
I'd like to see him with Deontay Wilder, because like that's like the biggest puncher versus arguably the best chin. So let's see who's more elite. Wouldn't that be a great buildup, right? They're both interesting. I think the other interesting thing about Joe Joyce is I met him in Big Bear when Tyson Fury made his comeback for Wilder, the first fight. For the way he fights, he's like the nicest person I've ever met. He's like a top 5 nicest boxer I've ever met. Enters the ring and he's like one of the most savage fighters I've ever seen. And that always stands out, that like something people overlook is how controlled he is. He can control everything about him. I think that there's a lot more to what Joe Joyce is doing than people give him credit. But personally, if you're asking me, I'm talking too much. Joe Joyce, Deontay Wilder, biggest puncher of the division, best chin, best pressure. Who can withstand more punishment?
Yeah.
That's the fight I want to see.
Yeah, it's exciting. Hopefully it's a big possibility. And yeah, we will see. But I think more people are warming to Joe Joyce and he has more people's attention now, that's for sure. Moving on, less than 2 weeks to go now. Chris Eubank Jr., Conor Benn, similar to Joe Joyce in the way that different people feel differently about this fight. It's sold out O2 Arena, so 19,000 people are going to be there on October the 8th. The O2 Arena hasn't been sold out for boxing for a long time, partly due to COVID, partly due to below par shows. So there is the market there, whereas some people maybe can't make a case for Conor Benn winning, so aren't that interested in the fight. Where do you stand on it? Are you excited for this one?
Look, I'm excited about most entertaining or noteworthy fights because I like boxing. people get confused when they go to the circus and see a clown. If I'm going to the circus, I'm not upset if I see the tiny car, clowns coming out of the clown. Like, this is what this is. This is an attraction. This is entertainment over sport. And I think that it's very interesting. And honestly, personally, I'm very concerned for Eubank. It seems like he has a lot of funny business going on. It seems like Benn is taking this fight way more serious. This screams of a fight for Conor Benn to potentially become a UK legend and have like a moment where nobody, quote unquote, nobody expects him to do something fantastic. And then he becomes an icon by having one of those sensational moments we live for.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to unravel here. I wanted to ask you about the training situation because it's a little bit unclear here. Because I mean, as we know, Eubank Jr. has had Roy Jones Jr. in his corner for his past 3 or 4 fights, I believe. I think he's mentioned that he's not going to be in his corner for this fight. Eubank Sr. is back in the picture. Do you think Eubank Sr. is going to be training Eubank Jr. for this fight, i.e. be the main guy in the corner between rounds? And if so, what do you think of that? Do you think that's a good idea or not so much?
I mean, we're already getting the roadmap that this is the camp from hell. His father basically pulled him out of the fight, and then like the fight's still on. Like, if nothing can tell you that the camp's not going good, your dad pulling you out of a fight and the fight's still going on for seemingly money reasons. This screams to me that he runs the show, that the fighter runs the show. And when in the history of boxing of a fighter running the show has that ever worked?
Yeah, exactly. It's a very strange one. And I remember early on in Eubank Senior's career, Eubank Junior's career, sorry, when his dad was his trainer, and it was all very strange with kind of Eubank Senior kind of posturing between rounds and not doing too much, not being that productive in terms of advice to the fighter. Is it too early to ask for? I know a lot of people maybe aren't giving an official prediction until the weigh-in happens, because as we know, Eubank Jr. is coming down in weight. But if you were to make a prediction at this stage, which is just under 2 weeks before the fight, is there a way that you're leaning?
I like Benn because it seems like Benn's hand. Like, I don't like anything going on in the Eubank camp. We don't know we don't know what the camp is. We see him going to events, eating unhealthy food, mocking the fight. His father tried to pull him out of the fight, or that's a media stunt. What about the Eubank camp, besides that he's a bigger man, gives us any feeling of pause? We're just all in on he's more experienced and bigger. But Benn is behaving like a professional. I'm very, very, very nervous for Eubank because Eubank has been one of these guys where I was very excited about him, partially because his father's a legend, right? I grew up with that. But also, he's a dynamic personality, and he just always stayed right at this medium level. He never got up. He never even went down. He just stayed right there. And it feels like Conor Benn, I think you brought this up to me, actually. He had those adversity fights where people actually viewed him almost like a journeyman, and he rallied back and he found something inside himself to become better.
Yeah.
This screams to me that Conor Benn's going to win this fight.
Interesting stuff. I think looking forward to getting more people's predictions as we get close to fight night, but it's really not long to go now. And it's one of the biggest fights happening in the UK in the last 10 years for sure. It's a fantastic event given the history and everything like that. So really looking forward to it. Last but not least, I've been a bit lazy. I don't know too much about this topic, but I don't know if you do, but I just wanted to discuss Floyd Mayweather Jr.'s exhibition fights. I believe he's had 4 since retiring, since the Conor McGregor fight. I know one was against Logan Paul. I'm not too familiar with the other ones. He was in Japan last night, stopped some guy in 2 rounds. I'm not aware of who this person is, if he's a boxer or not. But have you been tuning into them at all, keeping up with kind of his exhibition career? Have you taken much of an interest at all?
I mean, I have, but not like as the regular fight fan. I'm doing it more as like trying to shape stories for people that want to get content from me. And it's kind of interesting. Like, I guess I'm kind of interested in the motivations. Like Floyd's telling us he's doing this for money, but even if he's doing it for money, it feels like it's a lot of hassle for money. Like he's going across the world. Like
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand the intention, right? Because when I was working in college, I'd always tell people I was working for money, but I really wasn't working for money. I was working for something to do. I was working to find purpose. I was working to really learn skill sets. But I thought if I said I'm working this clerical job in a media center to make money, I felt like people would accept that more than being like, but I actually didn't know the answer. What Floyd's doing right now, it feels like it's something else, but it's being disguised as look at me rob the bank, look at me get all of this. I'm not a part of me thinks he wants to kind of go on a world tour like a rock star. Like he wants to kind of fight outside of America. I guess the sad part of this to me is Floyd put so much of an emphasis on an undefeated record. He has to make all these fights exhibition bouts because at some point he doesn't want to ever risk that because that's what defines him.
Yeah.
But it's I don't know, it's very strange because we've never really had prize fighters that retire and then come back to fight guys that we don't care about at all. Like as you said, a Japanese fighter that we don't know his name, don't care, we'll never probably see him again. Like, don't you find that odd that one of the greatest boxers ever is kind of now in his mid 40s, just fighting random people for a lot of money in random places?
Yeah, like there's the things. There was the Logan Paul fight, and he was fighting someone who's very famous, kind of very relevant, had had a fight before against, albeit against another YouTuber in KSI. So don't get me wrong, I didn't watch it, but I didn't hate it at the same time. But I just thought these fights he's having in Japan are just a bit strange, and I think it's a bit sad the fact that me and you are big boxing fans, and neither of us know too much about it and have bothered to kind of look into it too much. And I think that's a bit sad. I wonder if maybe he, as a boxer, you train, you fight your whole life, and maybe, albeit he wants to retire, he can't stop training because it's been a part of his life for so long. Maybe that's it. I just think that if he's going to have these exhibition fights, I'd rather him have them against other retired fighters, basically, or just so they're watchable, really. And I wanted to ask you, in terms of his legacy, do you think this is damaging his legacy at all, fighting guys that we haven't heard of and don't care about? For those that don't know, he's fighting apparently fighting another UK YouTuber, KSI's brother, who's called Deji, in November in Dubai. Deji, I think he's had 4 boxing fights and lost 3 of them. Won his last one. That's the next exhibition fight in Dubai, apparently. But yeah, that's the question, really. Is this damaging his legacy to when you consider the great fighters he's come up against?
I mean, no, because I think that Floyd is like a uniquely American. Like I was talking with my girlfriend last night, and we were talking about Kanye West, and this is gonna relate. So I'm giving you a Lukey rant, right? So this is gonna be, and it's like the more famous Kanye got, the more I couldn't listen to his music. And I don't even know if you in the UK you could relate to Kanye's music. And I'll say this why. He's kind of a uniquely American artist, a uniquely US artist in that materialism and money and the type of stuff he has, that defines everything about me. I am nothing if I don't have Kim Kardashian, the most sought after woman. I am nothing if I'm not the Louis Vuitton Don. Who I am is defined strictly by that. Floyd is defined by wins and losses, but he turned into like the Andy Warhol of boxing. Look at how much money I can make by reproducing this, by putting on events, by staging this. I am big business. I am corporate. People will buy a Floyd Mayweather event. So I think that though he built a great legacy, another thing about him is he has an element of Andy Warhol, an element of Jay-Z, of being extreme big business in an arts industry where part of his legacy is I'm just extremely rich. How rich can I get?
Yeah, we'll see. And look, the thing is, I've got mixed feelings about this, but I don't begrudge him doing it because, look, he's worked extremely hard and trained very hard for such a long time. And if someone wants to give him a lot of money to fight someone who is very easy for him to defeat, then fair play to him. It's just one of these things, and I think I've seen stories. He's like, there's been rumors of a Pacquiao rematch in an exhibition, and he's
Conor McGregor
not doing that. Conor McGregor as well. I think he come out and say he wants to fight McGregor next year. Then McGregor said no, and I don't know. I don't think Mayweather McGregor 2 would happen in the same way, and I don't think Mayweather Pacquiao 2 will happen at a pro fight or at an exhibition fight, because Mayweather doesn't, at the age of 45, I believe he is now, doesn't want to risk, after all of this time, possibly losing or getting humiliated. So I don't think he's going to fight anyone with any sort of ability, personally.
It seems like on a deeper level, Floyd doesn't want to not be seen as a boxer. So part of this is like he still wants to be like one of the greatest boxers of the era, but he doesn't want to fight the young people who could endanger everything he built up masterfully, that perfect record. The thing that scares me is one of these YouTubers is going to get really hurt. Like we just talked about Connor Benn. Think about Nigel Benn, Gerald McClellan. Those are two highly trained professionals. We're getting novice level boxers who are, I don't want to say play boxing because that's disrespectful, but these guys are probably doing street drugs and drinking alcohol and then jumping into a 3-month training camp, and we're acting like it's hunky-dory, and they're finding states where they can do it or countries, or we're playing with fire here, because this sport is not a game to be taken lightly, and we're bringing in these YouTube kids who haven't done a lot of athletic stuff. I get worried because I'm not saying it's going to happen in a Floyd fight, because if Floyd hurts this guy, Deji, he's either going to put him out or he's just not going to hurt him because he's that much of a professional. But I get scared because we're getting into these gray areas where it's like 2 untrained athletes and guys don't know what they're doing. This could get, I'm going to take over the show. Do you think I'm in the right there? Like, do you think this is getting into a place where we could have sanctions put on boxing because of this exhibition stuff?
100%. I would, I was aware of the last KSI fight with he fought 2 men in one night, fought one fight at the start, one fight at the end of the night, and his first fight was against a rapper who had about 3 weeks notice and had never fought before. And that was an example of, and whereas KSI was in good shape, had fought before, and that was an example of someone who could get hurt. And that's an example of someone who shouldn't be in the ring. I completely agree with you. Like, I hate to say it, but somebody will get hurt in one of these events soon, I believe, because you're going to have someone who does actually know how to fight a little bit, and then someone like who's completely useless, who hasn't trained hard. And you can see at some of these events, like, obviously I don't watch these events, but it's hard to get away from them because of social media. So you see these guys in the ring or at weigh-ins, and with respect, they've not trained hard, they aren't prepared, they don't know how to defend themselves, they don't know how to throw a punch, and they're going with someone who has at least has put some effort in. So again, I hate to say it, but yeah, these kind of exhibition fights are going to continue. They're not going to go away. Or these kind of influencer YouTube, TikTok fights, they are going to be with us. But
their bodies aren't in shape, Elliot. Their bodies aren't in shape. I'm seeing these influencer guys do media calls. I'm looking at them, and Papa Bear Lukey over here has got a better body when I take my shirt off, and they're getting in front of people, risking their lives, health, and safety, and they're drinking and consuming alcohol on podcasts, and they're going to fight someone.
Yeah, look, not like, I feel like we're kind of speaking from the same hymn sheet. I'm not convinced anything's going to be done about it anytime soon. I think that's the sad thing. Someone's going to have to get hurt for something to be done about it.
This is why it pisses me off, Elliot. And look at me with a ring on and looking all crazy and disheveled. This is what pisses me off, is that we're saying this as boxing lifers, but then our sport and us are going to be blamed for not saying anything if someone gets hurt. So we're saying, people, we need to be careful. We're playing with fire. Then the world's going to look at all of us like we sat around and did nothing if someone gets hurt, like we're barbaric, bloodthirsty animals, like we're the lowest common denominator for covering this sport. And that's what's going to happen. They're going to put new sanctions, new rules. And it's basically going to just hinder our sport in a public eye because of what's going to probably be coming if we're not careful.
Yeah, no, look, I can see it happening, and like us replaying this clip back in a couple of months or a year's time isn't going to be very helpful. But yeah, when I'm not that guy who's going to do that, but we'll see. I mean, I think KSI and whoever else are going to be fighting in the next couple of months. This Deji Floyd Mayweather fight's happening in November, but it's gotten quite big here, to be honest. And I think that it's changing the subject slightly. Is that a lot of kids are looking at that and thinking that's boxing. You've got two guys in there kind of throwing wild punches and who can maybe fight, but they can't box. They don't actually have any boxing ability. And that's one of my worries again, is you're getting 9, 10, 11-year-olds looking at that and thinking that is the sport. And that's the same thing as looking at two professionals who have boxed for a long time. That's kind of a side worry for me amongst what we've spoken about, is that there's a difference between what they're seeing and what boxing actually is.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. And then I also think that one of my other worries is, let's say Sky Sports says Misfit Boxing. You're selling out O2, you're doing 2 million views. Joyce, you didn't fully sell out an arena. The ratings aren't the same. Why don't we do this Misfits Boxing thing, and then we'll figure out where Joe can fit in on a card. And I guess what I'm worried is, if everything's about money and it's not about legacy, where do the greatest of our eras? Part of why a Joe Joyce should get put on the main event and get paid a lot is he's put a lot into this sport. He's a doctoral level boxer. He's put that much in. We need to reward skill as much as a fan base. Yeah. And that comes with the exposure. I think we're getting so hung up on, oh man, this guy's got 2 million followers because he looks sexy as hell when he takes his shirt off. There's a whole slew of Instagram girls that just think he looks great. That's all good and fine. But what about the kid that's been grinding his butt off and has been beaten top? Like another example, Maxie Hughes, Lee Wood. They're winning these fights with records that aren't sexy. They deserve to be on these main event spots. It kind of disgusts it. Like, I respect Jake Paul a lot because he's not playing boxing. I respect KSI because he's not playing boxing. But some of these guys, they're joking around.
Yeah.
And that's what makes me mad, is a Maxie Hughes, a Lee Wood. I want to see them get opportunities. I don't want them thrown on undercards and getting paid less when they're overcoming a lot of mental hurdles to have to win these fights, because around them, a lot of people are naysayers. Oh, you got a couple of losses. I don't think you could beat a Kid Galahad. I don't think you could beat Michael Conlon. He's real good. They deserve praise for what they're doing.
Yeah, big time. And I don't know. We'll see. I think I can't end things there. I think just one final thing for me is that we don't know where this is going to be in 2 or 3 years' time. But my kind of worry is that we're going to have a card in 2 or 3 years' time where the main event is this YouTuber who's never had a fight before, and this YouTuber who's never had a fight before. And on the undercard, you're going to get Lee Wood defending his world title, or Maxie Hughes in a world title fight, or something else. That's my worry. And then the main event's going to be actually 2 non-boxers.
My worry is it's going to be like Donald Trump versus Boris Johnson. We're going to start getting like presidents. It's like, whoa, they don't like each other in politics. Let's put them in a fight. And then it'll be like, okay, here's Maxie Hughes. Like, he's the YouTube portion of the card. It's a world title fight, but we're just throwing him out there for free. And here's Kanye West versus Gavin Newsom. Let's put him in the ring. This is going to be wild. And I think that's my worry. Isn't just that it's the YouTubers. My worry is, I think that people from politics and all different things are seeing just how disorganized boxing is. And if you put on a pair of gloves and you have a following, you can actually bypass actually having to earn and pay your dues.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. Well, we could be here all morning, all afternoon, all evening. I know you're in a different time zone too, but Luke, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for your time. Thank you for telling us about your book. Finally, the book, we'll put a link in the description so people can purchase it there. But yeah, thank you so much for your time, and we will speak soon. Okay.